Right, here we are again with Anne Laure Jackson, fresh off her US tour for Santé. Hello, Anne.
Hello. Oh, that sounds so yeah. I'm here, and that's it. I am awake. It's amazing. It's good.
Yeah, traveling. I think I mentioned this one time before. We went to Guernsey only by catamaran, but because of having to get the boat early because of rough seas, I had really severe jet lag, effectively, because we were all ready to go to bed, having worked today. We went to bed, and the phone rang. It was a ferry company saying you need to get here for this earlier thing. So we didn't go to sleep. We then drove straight through the night to get to the ferry. It was about 4 o'clock the next day when I had what people have now described as jet lag, where I just thought, even my hair hurts. I don't know what's going on.
Mm, Well, I'm very thankful for yes for transatlantic where they can actually take care of you and you can actually have some sleep. Because yeah, 'cause if I can't lie flat, I don't go. That's the deal. If I'm heading over across the water anyway, across different time zones, I need to be able to lie flat for my vestibular system and for me to be able to rest because I can't rest upwards. Some people can. My system doesn't let me do that. So
Yes, I can't say I envy people who do that, but I would love the opportunity to try resting sitting up, but no, I can't do it. It just does not work for me. If I'm not lying down, I can't sleep, I can't rest, I can't shut down.
yeah, yeah. And I think that is originally how our vestibular system it was intended to be. And that's the point where we have our awareness of quite the position of our head, whether we're slightly tilted or if it's forwards or if it's backwards or if it's flat. And I think when we do have it in that laying down position, then there is that's that an innate, this is sleep. And
Mm.
therefore it's much easier to sleep in that position for the majority of people. But obviously everybody's vestibular systems are different, so some people can sit up or fall asleep on a chair. But yeah, no, I'm not one of them.
But I guess that's partly how we're made, isn't it? When God designed us, when we lie down, it goes dark. There are periods of the night time where the darkness actually helps us to be in that deeper sleep, which is why some people have eye patches or blackout curtains. We have both. I don't do well in any sort of a light-ish environment. So I always have a pair of eye goggle things to shut out the light. But I guess that's partly how we're designed to function, is those times of properly shutting the body down so our senses, our whole body can actually get a rest.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that design of within that 24 hours, to have that period of rest, recuperation, regeneration, healing, renewing. But it needs to be ideally sensory deprivation. So our body, our proprioceptors, our muscles and our joints can relax because the important parts of our body are all supported. And the best bed designs will support you everywhere your body does need to support. So all of your muscles can relax and you're not going to fall. It's not going to be hard on your tactile processing. There is a softness to the bed that enables your brain to be able to relax into it. Your eyes, as you say, they're covered over, or it is black. If we have any form of light, or if we're camping and we're woken up by light, that's going to disturb us. For babies, we need to put those blackouts up for them too, for them to understand the difference between night and day, or to try and help them get into a night and day program when they're used to waking up every 3 to 4 hours for feeding. All of that stuff really helps. And then reducing noise, earplugs, yeah, so using all of our senses and making sure that, yeah, ideally that you're not by a kitchen as well that is producing some wonderful food at 2 o'clock in the morning that can quite happily wake you up and think, oh, I need to break my fast and let's have some breakfast. So, yeah.
Yeah. Hence break fast, of course.
Mm.
Completely different topic. Um,
Yeah.
and you thought
Yeah.
your brain was going to be firing all over the place. I don't need the encouragement. Right now, so you've been to the US, you've flown back, but I saw some wonderful posts from you as you really were sort of in words and pictures describing some of the sensory differences of the United States of America and their approach to life, to coffee machines, and all sorts of things. So let's just work through some of the things that I saw, starting with that first one, because you put a post about a coffee machine that was providing water for tea.
Mm.
There's an interesting one to start with. We like our tea, don't we, British?
tea. I couldn't believe how much tea was such a big factor of the whole experience. So yeah, firstly that I knew, well, I wasn't sure that there would be kind of like proper tea or any tea, because the last time I flew, we had, there was no capacity for tea. The hotel didn't have tea in the rooms. It was like, really? And then so I thought, well, I got to the room, I brought my tea bags with me. And then it was like, oh dear, how do I get hot water from a coffee machine? So that was a new learning curve for me. But then once you've used your coffee machine once, it is used to having coffee in it. So the first time was having a cup of tea, learning how to boil. Well, no, learning how to heat the water. It was kind of like, it needs to be boiling for tea. But yes, obviously the espresso machine hasn't I can't just tell it to make boiling water. But anyway, so the first cup of tea had a lovely coffee taste to it. So my gustatory sense was not happy, thinking this is not tea. This is tea with some coffee, because you had to rinse it out first, and then you have your hot water, a hot water tea. And I thought, well, that's better than nothing, but it wasn't a boiling water. And then it was quite interesting that going down to breakfast in the morning, and it was lovely. The waitresses were just, or the servers, that they got to know me, and it was like, good day, and great to see you, and we'll get we've got you, they said we'll get you tea, because of course everyone else is having coffee, but they'd bring it out in as hot water with a tea bag next to it. So again, it was just like, by the end of the last day, it says, can you please put any boiling water onto the tea bag straight away and then bring me the tea? Don't bring me the cup with water in it and then have the tea bag at its side, and that would be really helpful. Thank you. So yeah, definitely temperature. When we talk about temperature, and we talk about taste, and yes, funny old things.
But these things are comforting, aren't they? Because if you've got the tea that you like, or maybe a particular brand that you especially like, or perhaps you're an Earl Grey drinker, not just a normal tea drinker, those things, the scent, the smell, the texture, it provides such a familiarity that maybe everything else is different, but we've got a cup of tea, and I recognise that.
Yes, yeah, and it is very grounding. It is very lovely, and it's very nurturing. It is funny how the senses are so nurturing, because they provide that comfort and that assurance and that familiarity, and yeah, and hot drinks, especially we had the air conditioning. Oh, I still can't. Like I came back to Heathrow, and I was like, yes, the heat inside a building. It's
Is it really cold?
oh dear.
Is that they have it really cold? I don't know. I've never been to America.
Right. Oh, I tell you, like those little experiences. I'm sure. I mean, it is very, very hot outside, or certain, because we went through Dallas as well, and that was
Okay.
like 35 degrees. I still can't quite work out the difference between centigrade and Fahrenheit or Celsius, and so it's yes. But anyway, so that was 35 degrees in Dallas, and boy, that was hot. So yeah, it was very, very appreciative to be able to go inside, but I don't know why it's set so cold. The only time I wore a jumper for the whole time of the trip was inside a building, um, because it's just set so low. So I don't know whether it was just, well, it isn't actually. It's other people were commenting from the post, recognizing that they also don't understand or struggle with the fact that the air conditioning is set on a really low temperature. So I can imagine some of my people who do already struggle with temperature regulation, just quite how they cope. They
It's
obviously
quite a
have worked out their own ways, but still.
Yeah, it's a shock to the system, isn't it? If you've got 35 degrees, I mean, you can be in an air conditioned vehicle, you've still got to get out of the car that might be, cool, into a very hot environment, back into a cold environment. Just from a physiological point of view, that's quite a lot of strain on the body as we
It
go
is.
from cold to hot to cold to hot. The body's trying to adjust in it. Yeah.
And I don't know. It was below 18 degrees. It
Huh?
must have been in the rooms. So I don't. I mean, I could have gone to check, but all I just know is that I need to wear my jumper.
Okay.
Weird.
You see, we bought air conditioning for the studio because it is so hot in this particular room where we have the studio and we have two computers working all day. So it generates a lot of heat. So we
Mm.
finally bought air conditioning because by the time I get to my show, 3 p.m., I was seriously getting heat stroke and dehydrated. So we've solved that. But when I had it, what temperature I set it at, I'm setting it like 22 degrees because it's 24, 25 outside at one point, and I'm just taking a little bit of temperature off,
Yeah.
and for me that's enough. I said it's 19 initially. I thought, I feel cold, and I'm not going to run air conditioning to wear a jumper to be cold. I'm just going to make it less cold,
Yes.
which made
That's,
sense.
yeah. Again, like I'm with you. I don't know. And I thought, well, obviously it's not my place to say anything because it just isn't. But that's exactly what I would think.
Which makes sense to me. Okay, other differences about the US, because this is the thing. You're going to an English speaking country, and yet America is not the UK. It's a different country. That's obviously, but then we think, well, they're English speaking, therefore it's very similar to us, but actually it's a different culture. So you have to get to different sounds, different temperatures. What was the food like for you from a sensory perspective of walking into a restaurant? Is it a similar experience to the UK, or is it different?
Again, I just think everything that I experienced over there was more intense. Um, we know culturally it's a bigger space. Visually, everything is bigger. The cars are bigger. The roads are bigger. I was taking photos of the fields. It doesn't help probably the fact that I'm from Jersey, so our fields are pretty tiny and our roads are pretty tiny. Um, but everything is huge, and we've got huge characters and big personalities, and um yeah, just everything was big, but so everything's just more intense or more extreme to what I'm used to. It's very typical, not extreme for them, obviously. But I had a burger with a jalapeno pepper. No, jalapeno, yeah, it's spicy thingy, tapped into the top, and I didn't know what it was. And thankfully, when I was with one of my American friends, she ate it first. She wasn't sure if it was an olive, and she said, "Oh no, that's not an olive. That's a jalapeno." And she's like, "Ha ha, give me something to drink." So it's like, "Oh, thank you for letting me know. But why on earth would you stick? It didn't say it on the menu." Like, I just want a burger and chips, thinking that would be a safe option because I wasn't sure with some of the other bits and pieces. And I'm quite adventurous in my flavorings, but it was utterly gorgeous. Apart from the intensity of some of the extremes of the food and mixing sweet. I nearly took a picture of you kind of have your sweet and your savory all in one, and we do less of that over here. But all the breakfast things, you had your waffles and your blueberries on the same plate as their bacon and their sausages. And so I was looking at what the Americans were doing, thinking I wouldn't put them on the same plate, but everybody else was. So it was just like, really? Like, okay. And cornbread was really sweet, and yet that's like, yeah. So the whole kind of savory and sweet thing was definitely a different experience as well. All fascinating, all absolutely amazing, and no judgment other than this is just very different. This is just bizarre to me, just musings, but with no judgment. It's just appreciating and finding the funny in the differences. Oh, except the toilets. That was quite shocking.
Okay,
Like,
let's go there. What
let's
what
go there.
what's with the toilets?
We know so many of our people struggle with auditory processing issues. Hand dryers, just the noise of a hand dryer in a public toilet is just really hard going for so many of folk with sensory processing issues. So I was well prepared. I'm always well prepared. I don't have auditory processing issues myself anyway, but I'm always prepared. I'm always sensitive when I go into bathrooms, and I'm conscious of what's going on. But without going into too much detail, the fact that there are automatic flushes, which is a new thing for me, that yes, when you're sitting there, um, every now and again, the flush just goes off because it's either
Okay.
timed or there's a little sensor at the back. So if you move in any way or shape, they think you have done what needs to be done and that you have left the toilet. That you are no longer sitting on it, so it flushes at you anyway. So, and that is so scary when you are not expecting it. Never heard of it in my life before. And this is the power of preparation. this is the difference that knowing that something is going to happen from a sensory perspective, the difference that it makes to your arousal levels and your alertness levels. Because I was almost jumping off that toilet thinking, what has just happened? You know, it's behind me. I don't see anything happening. There's an automatic flush. You get the noise, you get the splashes, you get all kinds of things. And it's just like, what has just happened? And why did it just happen when there is no sense of rhyme or reason at the time? Why that would happen, because no toilet has ever flushed without me telling it to flush. So yeah, very scary, and I felt such like a pro. Like by the end of the week I'm like, yes, I
I got this.
I've got this. Yeah, totally. Not. Oh, actually, well, should I really be saying that I'm proud that I've now conquered the toilet flush and that I know what I'm doing, and I just felt such a pro.
But this is it, though, isn't it? You just said you've got no sensory processing issues, and yet it was quite a shock to you.
Mm.
Preparation is key, and by the end, you sussed it out. But of course, if you've got processing issues, whether that's auditory or visual, whatever version it might be, actually, some of those things that they can shock you and make it far more difficult. Which is why one of the regular things that we almost always say is preparation is so important to what you're doing. Being prepared means doing a little bit of research, talking to people. I mean, you saw someone eat a jalapeno thing, and okay, I'm not going to do that. So you've learned, but you've got visual awareness, whereas somebody who doesn't might just grab the burger and eat it. So there's lots there, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I have to I have to go back to the toilets, the other one, because the other thing that was really disconcerting was the gap in the toilet, like at the side of the. We used to, yeah, you have a gap at the bottom of where the toilet door is, and you have a gap at the top. So if people need to get in, if you have anything happens to anybody in the toilet, you can go either under or you can go over the top. But most toilets that I'm aware of actually are privacy screens because you're exposing yourself. Whereas these ones, and it was in a few places where there were strips down the side. I thought, if I can see you at the sink, then if you turn around, you can see me. It's just
Okay.
the visual processing. It's just, I really don't want people who have really good visual processing and really good eyesight to turn around. That would just bizarre. I don't get it. I think it would probably help if there was some reasoning behind it, but I still haven't found an answer as to why. Because we can all make doors. It's not as if they're hard to make, that you have a door that closes like completely. So I'm waiting on that one. If there's any, like Mary in Montana, if you are listening,
Helps.
if there's anybody stateside who knows why this would be the case, that would at least put part of my mind at rest, even if not my processing.
But this is the thing about just travel generally, is that you can prepare as much as you want to. We went to the gathering, which is in the UK. We drove 5 hours. We're still in England, and we went to the gathering and we had a tent that we borrowed, which was great. But there's so many new things that you have to learn how to do. Like, I was quite surprised when I went to the toilets. They were actually lovely at the gathering, completely different from a big church festival, a different festival we went to, which were little sort of square cubicle things. These were lovely, like caravan type things, and it was just really pleasant, much
Wow.
more space. And when I went to flush the toilet, thinking I'm going to have to, stand and pump this thing to make it flush, it was like Niagara Falls just erupted through the toilet, which was a bit of a shock, in a really good way. But again, from a sensory perspective, it can be very overwhelming when you got these differences going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and the tiniest things. The other thing that got me was the light switches, the way you flick them up and down. We have motor memory, the way that we're used to picking up a cup. If you have a favorite cup, you kind of know the weight of it, to take it up to your mouth, and so that you don't spill it or you don't, shove. It doesn't fall out everywhere and do little things. We have this motor memory of things that we do on a regular basis. It's like handwriting becomes automatic. You don't need to teach yourself. Driving becomes automatic. You get used to where things are and the position of everything, and the kind of grading and the force that you need to turn the wheel or to, move the gear stick or the shift stick, whatever you want to call it. And the same way with just the tiniest thing of just switching on and off a light switch. I wasn't aware of it before, that my motor memory is that I flick a switch down to switch it on.
Yep.
Whereas up there or over there, at least in where I was staying, you flicked it up to switch it on, and you flicked it down to switch it off. And I was not aware of it until I had to think about the movement that I was making. And that's where, when it comes to sensory processing, things that others take as automatic, you have to think about. And that is why life can be so tiring and so exhausting, because of the amount of cognitive thinking effort that you need to put into everyday activities. And my job is to help that automaticity become more automatic more quickly.
Cool. How did you get on with the flights? Because I know the last time you flew, it was quite an assault on the senses because there's this sort of constant noise, isn't there? I suppose it's the air moving around effectively, and it's I don't know how you describe it. It's not high pitched, it's not low pitched, it's sort of somewhere in the middle, but it's kind of constantly there, isn't it? How did you
Yeah.
manage that this time?
This time I bought myself some noise cancelling headphones, and I thought, I'm going to try these. I know, again, I recommend them all the time, but I thought, well, let's try it myself, because I knew this was 27 hours worth of travel,
Wow.
sleeping where I could, and preferably on my one flight where I knew I could reduce or flatten my actual seat. Um, And normally, yeah, I would recommend listening to higher frequencies, because it's easier on the brain, but you're still listening to something. And I thought, actually, for 27 hours, let's try these noise cancelling headphones. So I bought some, and it was beautiful. I didn't wear them all the time. It was very much on, it was very much off. According to what I felt, how I was sensing my own, how I was perceiving my own body and my own mind, and if I felt there was some form of dip in functioning, or that I knew I wanted to prepare myself for the transitions to somewhere else, or I knew I was going to be going into a bigger, noisier place where I needed to have all my wits about me and all my senses about me, then I would prepare myself and just put my noise cancelling headphones on for about 20 minutes, half an hour before, just to give my brain a break um, from everything. It's beautiful.
Just explain for me how they work. I mean, I've had headphones, none of them have ever been noise cancelling. I've got one set that sort of do it a bit, but what are they actually doing? Is it making it silent like an earplug would do, or is it just reducing overall noise a lot?
For me, I think there will be different ones. I'd really like to start inquiring now and actually going around and trying different ones, because you have the ones that you get, the builders, I think, are that padded, that it is, you just they just block it out. The ones that I have, the typical noise cancelling actually transmits something back. So it's almost like they reflect the sound waves coming in.
Okay.
So that you can really have a very immersive, quiet experience. But I was noticing there were certain frequencies, there were certain sounds that were still coming through. The rest was really, the general background noise was reduced, but there were still the odd particular voices, or just an individual thing that would still come through. So that was fascinating, and that's why I want to explore more and find out more, much more, about the different types of noise cancelling headphones now, because the technology is changing all the time.
Mm.
And these ones, definitely, you kind of like click to switch in order to produce the noise cancelling.
Oh
If
wow.
not, you click it and then you just have it. They called it transparency. So you could hear, you had your headphones on, so you could play music in, but it wasn't cancelling out the sound. Or you flick to switch, and then it kind of like bounces sound away from your ears.
I used to wear when I was had a motorbike. I used to do a lot of. I used to commute to work about 45, 50 minutes a day. So I had earplugs, but I mean, if I got it right, they cancelled almost everything. And it was just I knew I could hear the noise of the engine, the bike, because it's pretty loud.
Mm.
But they were earplugs, so that was literally preventing pretty much all noise. But when one of them used to pop out or something, there's nothing you can do about it. And then I'd think, wow, I didn't realize just how effective these were, because
Mm.
this is really loud. But I didn't notice until they stopped working how much they were actually working.
Yeah, and that's where we in therapy and in treatment, we don't advise wearing them all the time. With most things, it's like use them. It's like weighted vests and things like that, because your brain will get used to um, something that it is exposed to a lot, and it will become its new norm. So therefore, when you are exposed to bigger sounds, when you're exposed, if you take off your weighted jacket, all of a sudden you lose the impact, and the norm is much more extreme. So that's why we don't want to have them on all the time, because your brain thinks this is the new norm, rather than using it as a tool to take out the extra. It should just be there as a tool to help you function for shorter periods of time, to give you rest, because we don't live in an environment where there is no sound. We don't live in an environment where we are carrying an awful lot of weight on our bodies. Our bodies are designed, our brains are designed to connect with whatever we are carrying around ourselves, with our own muscles and our own fat and our own joints. That is what should be norm for the brain, not when you put extra weighted stuff on you. The extra weighted stuff can be a real help to be very grounding and organizing to the brain, but you use it for that period of time and then you take it off again. Same with ear defenders, you put it on for a certain period of time, but not great to get used to it for 24 hours a day.
And otherwise, it's not going to be able to help us, is it?
It's just going to make life a lot worse if you ever take them off.
Hmm. Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so have you got any, just wrapping all of your US travels, have you got any reflections of things that you've learned? Just give us one thing you've learned that you thought, okay, that didn't work, and give us something that you've learned that did.
Um, I'll always go back to tea. Yeah, making tea with non-boiling water.
We're British, we like our tea.
um, asking preparation, being humble to ask, um, accepting differences, um, honoring differences, and not trying to change someone else when you're aware that you're the one who is a guest, who is a visitor. That was interesting to think. Yeah, anything that I have, I'm some people think when they're a guest that everybody should change for them,
Hmm.
but it was very much no, the other way around. It's just like, no, I'm here as a guest in their environment. This is their culture, this is their norm, and
Hmm.
it's for me to change, not for them to change to me, apart from how you make a cup of tea.
Apart from how you make a cup of tea, which is going to be one of those ongoing things. I have a friend, David, and he has Earl Grey tea in the morning, which he has, and he loves. It's a lovely little chat we have every so often because he's an American through and through, absolutely lovely guy. But he has his cup of tea with boiling water in Earl Grey, Earl Grey tea, and it's quite funny how he does it properly, absolutely. But there's this sort of ongoing thing of the US UK. What is this thing that you're doing with that tea bag and that water, which is fascinating culturally. But I loved how you said, because it was the words were in my mind. You're entering their norm,
Mm,
so you need to adapt to how they are. And as hosts, we want our guests to be feeling very comfortable and welcome. But I suppose in the same sense, we kind of want them to make the most of how we are and who we are and how we live. And if we're a guest going somewhere, it's great to be cared for. But at the same time, I want to enter that culture because I
mm,
want to experience it because I don't want my norm. My norm's back at home. I want to experience this one because this is unique and special. Um, and when we were at the gathering the other weekend, that's not my norm. A festival with 2,000 blokes is not my norm. And I really wanted to get into that. And I absolutely loved it because it's so not normal.
mm,
Yeah, I looked forward to coming home, but I also really sad at leaving it because I'd made friends and it was a great experience. Not my normal experience. It's very loud. In fact, at one point, I did say to the boys, I really need to stop because I'd done, I think, 8 hours of live radio with 10, 15 interviews
mm,
in a really loud room, and I did get to the point of I've got to go and find somewhere quiet, and I had to take myself off for a little bit because we have our limits. As much as I enjoyed it, I also needed to withdraw sometimes to go back into it, enjoy it some more. Which is what you were saying with the vest or the ear defenders. It's not something that we can have 24/7. We need to enjoy it, come out, and we can enjoy it again.
mhm, mhm.
Fab. Right. So happy from your trip from the US. There are lots of smiles, so that's great. You obviously loved it.
Loved it, love being back, and just think, well, that's life. We just, yeah, make the most of every circumstance and live life abundantly.
Yes, wonderful. Right, if you want to get to know Anne more and what she can do to help you in your life, then go to our website, pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ for Anne Laure Jackson. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And we'll see you again soon.
See you soon.